Hi everyone, my name is Jenna Annunziato, and the topic I'm going to be discussing today is the current state of transgender healthcare. So what it means to be transgender. A transgender person is an individual whose gender identity differs from the gender they were assigned to at birth. The term transgender includes all people who feel they do not fit into the socially prescribed and limiting concepts of gender. Gender is a range of behaviors that get associated with being a man or a woman. So like what kind of jobs they're expected to do, how should they express emotions, what kind of movies and products are they expected to like, and stuff like that. So I wanted to discuss some history of transgender people in the United States. So transgender people have existed throughout American history. Many indigenous tribes, including the Navajo, Crow, and Mohawk, had fluid gender roles as part of their cultures. It was understood and accepted that some women acted as men and some men acted as women. In the late 1700s, a preacher named Public Universal Friend lived as a successful preacher with a large following. They identified as neither man nor woman. Today, they would likely identify as something called non-binary. Robert Shurtleff was a transgender man who fought heroically in the American Revolution. The settlers and Puritans were repulsed by these behaviors and continuously tried to suppress. By the late 1800s to early 1900s, laws began to be enacted against many who were living outside of the accepted norms of what was considered acceptable. Throughout much of the first half of the 1990s, transgender people attempted to stay closeted due to prejudices and laws that had been enacted. It was too dangerous to be seen. By the 1960s and 70s, with the advent of the civil rights movements, visibility was becoming more common. Most Americans today would point out that the LGBTQ rights have expanded substantially over the past 20 years. Some gains include marriage equality, hate crimes legislation, and anti-discrimination protections. As transgender people began to live more openly, their access to healthcare greatly expanded, with clinics specializing in LGBTQ care popping up in large number of cities across the US. So the current state of transgender healthcare in the United States. Approximately 1.4 million adults in the US identify as transgender. Between 150,000 and 300,000 children identify as transgender. This makes up a very tiny portion of the US population. Transgender people require safe access to healthcare in order to live as their authentic selves. Gender-affirming care is individualized and can include things such as hormone therapy, surgery, hair removal, voice therapy, and fertility preservation. There is a tremendous backlash against the transgender community. There is a flurry of anti-trans laws and policies, both enacted and pending. Trans youth became a major scapegoat for conservatives in the last election. President Trump is complicit in advancing a Christian nationalist agenda centered around traditional family values. The blueprint for this is Project 2025, a conservative initiative outlining a series of broad policies targeting marginalized populations, especially transgender people. President Trump has appointed and is surrounded by the authors of Project 2025 and appears to be following this blueprint. Quinan argues that this emerging anti-trans legislation pivots from punishment and criminalization to erasure and dehumanization of trans life in all its forms. The Trump presidency has a huge impact on transgender lives. Over 200 million was spent on anti-trans rhetoric during the 2024 election. On day one of his presidency, Trump signed an executive order mandating only male, female genders and requiring trans people use sex assigned given at birth. Many gender-affirming hospital programs and clinics have shut down due to pressure and threats to withhold federal funds for providing gender-affirming care for those under the age of 19. He ordered insurance coverage stripped for trans minors of federal employee and military family health plans. The Department of Justice started targeting investigations, and issued subpoenas to hospitals that provide gender-affirming care to youth. So there are a lot of barriers to healthcare, and transgender people are the most underserved in medicine. So there's the reluctance to disclose. So social stigma still exists. In a 2010 National Transgender Discrimination Survey found 19% of trans responders have been refused care, 28% had been verbally harassed, and 2% have been physically assaulted while attempting to receive care. Some structural barriers include lack of unisex restroom access. Public bathrooms that are not gender neutral can be a very dangerous place for trans people. Problems with sharing rooms in hospitals, and many lab tests are linked to gender specific with normal ranges linked to gender. Lack of provider experience and resources. Discrimination exists. Cultural sensitivity training for providers has been shown to help provider interact with trans people. Lack of knowledge. Trans population have unique needs. The suicide rates are as high as 40%, higher risk of drug and alcohol abuse, and there's 4 times the greater risk of HIV. There are also financial barriers. The same survey found 48% of trans people delayed care when sick or injured because they could not afford it. This is due to discrimination in the workforce. No access to employment-based insurance, and insurance companies deny treatments and procedures. Some additional findings that I found were legal name changes contribute to access of care, contributes to a decrease in anxiety and depression, provides social and legal status on gender identity, and critical in the healthcare settings. Recent and rapid increase in anti-transgender legislation at state and federal levels. This linked to severe physical and mental health comorbidities, increased mortality in transgender population, increases unemployment, housing insecurity, and poverty, decrease in resources and support. So in the end, the attacks on the transgender population through both violence, rhetoric, and legislation continue to escalate. This contributes to an increase in uncertainty, fear, and mental health problems in the community. The need for healthcare increases as this affects both mental and physical health. Transgender people need regular access to care, hormones, and blockers just to maintain their baseline. They should be able to thrive just as we all hope to do. Meanwhile, the resources they require decrease due to funding being canceled as policies change. This cruelty is a crisis for transgender people, their families, and the communities they live and work in. Here is a list of the references I used to put together this presentation. Thank you all for your time.